Cuomo. So shout out to Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. There's all this good stuff. We got more stuff to talk about, so you all better stay tuned. If you don't, watch out.
Mamdani shocked the political world when he easily cruised to a double-digit victory in the Democratic primary for mayor. Since then, he has been crisscrossing the city and even traveled to the nation's capital to meet with both friendly faces and some critics as he seeks to broaden his support ahead of the general election, where he could be facing at least 4 opponents come November. This week, Mamdani held closed-door meetings with some of the city's Jewish leaders, the city's business community, and House Democrats. And he has picked up a number of endorsements along the way. Joining me now to talk about where things stand in the campaign is the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. Welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Errol. Always a pleasure.
When I spoke to Andrew Cuomo earlier this week, your opponent, he said he is, quote, repulsed by your policy proposals because he thinks they're not realistic. I know you've heard that before. I wanted you to hear part of that conversation and then get your reaction. Let's listen.
So these 3-word slogans sound good, excellent on social media, but it's not reality, and a little bit, I was too wed in responsibility and reality. I would not say something that I couldn't get done.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, he said time and time again that he was going to win and he couldn't get that done. So what we see from the governor in this moment is the fact that he's repulsed by an agenda to actually deliver for working people. In that same interview, which I saw, he compared tenants to hotel guests, and in doing so created a hierarchy within our own city, when what we need is a mayor who understands the affordability crisis is impacting those tenants, those homeowners, everyone across the city, and will actually deliver on affordability for them. Mm-hmm. And when he was asked in an interview after he relaunched his campaign as to how he would deliver that affordability, he said he didn't know. And we know exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by freezing the rent, by making buses fast and free, delivering universal childcare, and putting working people first in the nation's most expensive city.
And by the way, if you're not able to deliver, what is the consequence you're prepared to accept?
That I have not lived up to my word. Mm-hmm. I am making promises that I intend to keep. And I make them because I believe in our ability to deliver on them. Freezing the rent is something we've seen previous administrations do. Making buses fast and free is something we've seen a pilot of that I helped to win in New York City. And delivering universal childcare is something that could be done with the partnership, especially of a governor like the one we have today, who's been laser focused on the question of affordable childcare.
Okay, so now you've said a lot of negative things about Cuomo, and we heard he said some things about you. What are some positive things you think he achieved as governor?
I think one of...
That's a question that's also going to be used against him. Like, okay, positive things. Well, his 2020 tenure wasn't all that great. I mean, scandal after scandal, women coming forward, the senior citizen home disaster, the lockdowns, corruption. I mean, there's a lot of things that were flying around Cuomo.
Of the positive things I would say was when he called me on election night, he spoke sincerely about what we had accomplished as a campaign, that we had spoken to young people, that we had brought more people into our political process, and that we had won the night. Mm-hmm. And he asked, would it be all right if he told everyone that we had this conversation, that he shared that with people? And I said, absolutely. And I said that I intended to unify our party in the weeks and months to come. That's what I've spent my time doing. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated the grace that he had in that conversation, because I think it's something that has been missing in a lot of his political career. And I hope that one day he can return to that. Instead, what we're seeing in the resuscitation of a campaign that we defeated by more than 12 points is the same tired policies and proposals that New Yorkers decisively rejected about 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Let me ask you about some of what went on during your conversation with some of the business leaders you met with. You had a couple of different business meetings, but it was reported that in at least one of those meetings, you said that you would discourage the use of the slogan, globalize the intifada. And I know you've been asked about this a million times. Let me just throw in my 2 cents. I was actually in Israel for the first time during the second intifada. It was a traumatic, horrible, violent time. You could see where storefronts had been blown out. You had to open your bags everywhere. There was a lot of tension. The streets were deserted, streets that were normally lively. We know, and it lasted for years, that thousands of people, both Palestinians and Israelis, died before they got some kind of a treaty to sort of dial back some of the violence. It was just a horrible, horrible time. And as you know, as you've heard, a lot of people are traumatized by that word. It brings back a lot of really, really bad memories. I was just a visitor, but there are people who have lived with much worse. Um, Obviously, as part of your job as mayor, you would need to sort of dial back the temperature, bring people together. Where are we now in that conversation, and what else might you want to say about that particular phrase?
You know, Errol, I've thought about this quite a lot. And for some New Yorkers, this phrase is one that refers to civil disobedience and protest, a call to end the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. But I know that for many Jewish New Yorkers, it brings to mind images of the like that you were speaking of. I was sitting with a rabbi not too long ago who told me how the same phrase is heard very differently by her. And it's heard as a reference to bus bombings in Haifa, restaurant attacks in Jerusalem, and it engenders a fear in her and in others of the possibility of those very attacks coming home here in New York City. And that distance between what some intend and what others hear is a bridge that is too far. And it is why I have not used the phrase, and it is why I discourage its use. And my focus is on building a movement for justice and equality. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, I think often of the words of Noy Katzman, who lost their brother in the horrific war crime of October 7th. And Noy said, we must believe in all life, Israeli and Palestinian, Jewish and Arab, that it is equally precious. And that is the vision that I hope to fulfill.
And if a particular phrase that might not be central to the conversation becomes a stumbling block, how would you, as the mayor of all New Yorkers, how would you sort of bridge or navigate that?
I think by
Okay, so again, there's only so much I could sit through with an interview like this, but bear with me. Hold on. I can explain why we are sitting through this, because I'm not saying we're seeing a transformation. I mean, I do want to hold out for hope that he will follow through with his campaign promises, that he will follow through with trying to make the lives of working class New Yorkers, as they should, their lives more comfortable, so they can afford to live in the city, so they can afford to enjoy the city, so that they can afford to raise families in the city. Because the beating heart of the cities in the United States aren't the landmarks. It's not the stadiums. It's the people. It's the generations that have made New York City or Los Angeles or Miami or Chicago great. And unfortunately, for a long time, many of these politicians in these major metropolitan cities have given the people a middle finger. They have given the people next to nothing. How do I know that? Because, look, I live in the city of Chicago, and I know firsthand what it's like to be screwed over by a government or anything else in between, or see it happen to family members and friends. It's not fun to sit through. It's not fun to deal with anything. And also, again, Lawrence Fine says, trust no politician. Absolutely not. Don't trust a politician. Okay? Never trust a politician. And this is where I'm afraid I'm seeing a transformation take place. A transformation that's disturbing, concerning, frightful, and very, 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 and I do mean very, it was capital V, predictable. They say one thing, and now they got the Democrat leadership, because, again, Democrats are always, what have I said before? They're always trained to follow the leader, right? Now, I could see a transformation happening. I believe that, a lot of our colleagues in independent media in New York City, like Do Dissidents, I know Jose Vega, Larry Sharp, and Mike, across the political spectrum, they'll be keeping an eye on this. Look, November is when it's finally go time, right? Mamdani did win a huge victory over Cuomo, who is carrying a lot of baggage. And, of course, then you also have the previous mayor, or current mayor Eric Adams, for example. The only reason why he's still running is because he's hoping to God that he could pull it off and not deal with any more legal headaches. Fresh off a blockbuster legal accusation from his former police commissioner on Wednesday, for example, and some major endorsements on Thursday, Mayor Eric Adams sat down one-on-one with Eyewitness News' Bill Ritter as the New York City mayoral race heats up. So the group's calling the endorsement a united front with the mayor who has stood with them. So here's the thing. He's not only trying to save the city from the policies of the Democratic primary winner, I want to save it from him. Andrew's policies harmed our city, and the policies that the primary winner wants to introduce harm our city. So one is running from the record, and the other, again, he's talking about Cuomo, has no record. I'm the only one in the race that has a record. Yeah, a record with a lot of legal headaches. Oh my goodness. So Mayor Eric Adams, or I guess soon to be former Mayor Eric Adams, he's got that baggage. Then you got Cuomo, who's got his baggage. I'm not going to say Mamdani has it in the bag, but there's a very good chance when you look at Mayor Eric Adams and the scandal surrounding him, then you got Cuomo and the scandal surrounding him, both of whom are running as independents, both of whom who I know will probably give a bad name to independents. So Larry and Jose, I'm not going to tell you what to do, guys, but definitely be raising up the banner saying that those two do not represent independent politics or independent third-party politics. There has to be a huge separation. There has to be a sit-down, all right? Somebody has to do a sit-down. Roger Meadows, shout out to you. We got to get Michael Franzeschi to do a sit-down, get Cuomo and Eric Adams away from the third-party kind of mindset. But the issue that I'm having with Mamdani right now is that he is, or he could be, and this is to be expected after a primary, might compromise on some of his other issues, right? Some of the other things that he wants to do. Now, he has to show himself. He has to prove himself to New Yorkers. And obviously, there's going to be a debate between the candidates. There's going to be probably another town hall. And all the candidates have to prove whether or not they are the better candidate to earn the people of New York City's trust for the tenure of the mayor during this election cycle. I know I'll be keeping a close eye on it because this is probably what's going to happen here in Chicago. Now, Chicago is going to be a very special case because Brandon Johnson, for example, who is viewed as a progressive, I would not call him that. He is at the risk of being a one-term mayor. And there are so many people out there that want to vie for his seat. It's going to be a war zone. See, I think what we're seeing in New York, I mean, what happened in New York was a very interesting election cycle, very historic. I'm not going to take it away. But I will say the one in Chicago that's going to be happening in 2027, hold on, folks. It's going to be a wild ride.